It's 23 degrees here to your daily dose of sunshine, Sunrise Daily. I'm Maupe Ugunyuse.
Well, thankfully, it's 26 degrees in Lagos, and boy, is it cold in the mornings, even at daytime. It would seem like the daily dose of sunshine, Maupe, is rationed these days, but hey, we're still alive and well. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makide.
Well, it's great to have you back from your brief break. I was going to say, look who's back. Accurate timekeeper, co-debater, and keeper of the dates. Complaining about sunshine being rationed. Well, certainly not on this show, Ayo. What's today's date, if I may ask?
Oh, well, of course, you know, today is August 25, and you know the usual countdown at this time of the month?
What are we counting down to now?
You know what people count down to at this time of the month. Come on, Malfoy, you know.
I'm doing my best. Oh, okay, maybe. Oh, come on, I'm a salary earner too, am I not? Is that what you're referring to?
I didn't say anything. I'm just here, minding my business.
Well, Ayo, talking about salaries, because, you know, that has been right at the forefront of what has been occupying national debate in recent times. An agency of government which I think, you know, is adept at stoking controversy, especially whenever it raises this issue of salary for public office holders, you know, has done it again. RAMFAC, the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, has been in the news for, you know, raising the conversation around raising the salaries of the president, the vice president, and a number of other public office holders. And that has not gone down well with a number of Nigerians. Well, RAMFAC says, look, there is a case for this. That if we look across, say, even the African continent, that our public office holders, particularly the president and the vice president, are one of the lowest earning, and that their salaries right now do not reflect the current economic realities of our country. And so they're thinking of taking the second look at reviewing their salaries upwards. Well, RAMFAC might be looking for, I don't know, I hope it certainly can chew all of this that is biting off. There are a number of other people, let's say bodies that are unhappy because they're not government agencies, but sometimes they are affiliated to government. Take, for instance, the NLC. The Nigeria Labour Congress is not finding it funny, and they have released a statement urging RAMFAC to not try it. And then you also have SERAP, the Socio-Economic and Accountability Rights Project. It's a civil society organization. They, too, are not happy about this, and they have said to the president to immediately suspend the patently, those are their words now, patently unlawful and unconstitutional pay rise for political and public office holders in Nigeria, particularly the president, vice president, governors, the deputies, and the country's lawmakers. But as they say, sometimes when you have this conversation, the truth will be somewhere in the middle, you know. And this morning, we're here to discuss this particular matter with somebody who will know more than a thing or two about what exactly should be, why this might be causing an uproar, and maybe the way forward. This morning, we're joined by Dr. Joe Abah, who is a lawyer. He's a former Director General of the Bureau for Public Service Reforms and also the Country Director of DAI. Dr. Abah, it's so good to have you in our studios this morning.
Thanks very much, Mo. Quite good to see you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ayo.
You know, every time I take a look at what RAMFAC does, I say to myself, these people are in trouble. Because every single time they've done this, it's always courted controversy. It's always stirred up controversy. I think the last time they did it was for for the judiciary. And a number of people did not quite agree, even though, well, in that instance, you could get a lot of people who were, you could get, you know, opposing views. It was seen that there was a balance in that conversation, because some people thought, look, we cannot ignore our judicial public office holders. These people put in the work. They're at work every day. They're they're not politicians. And if we want a judiciary that is upright, then we must pay them well. So I think that at the end of the day, reasoning won in that regard, and the salaries of public service holders were increased. But in this instance, there have been questions as to whether we can justify it. But just before you know, we go to whether or not we can justify it. I understand that we now have the justification by the chairman of RAMFAC, Mr. Mohammed Shehu, who announced the commencement of the process for the review of the revenue allocation formula, as well as that of public office holders. Take a listen.
The Commission will carefully assess the needs, service delivery obligations, fiscal performance, and development disparities. Let me state clearly that this review will be inclusive, data-driven, and transparent. It will involve broad-based consultations with critical stakeholders, including the Presidency, National Assembly, state governors, ALCON, the judiciary, MDAs, civil society organizations, traditional rulers, the organized private sector, and development partners. The Commission is also committed to integrating cutting-edge research, empirical data, and international best practices in its analysis.
Well, you heard him right there. He says it's going to be inclusive, transparent, data-driven. Do you think that there is justification for this at this time?
I think the answer to your question lies in your last statement, at this time, because it's often not enough that something is the right thing to do. Something could be the right thing to do, but you could do it in the wrong sequence, you could do it at the wrong time, you could do it in the wrong way, and you'll end up doing more harm than good. My thinking is that the timing is not right, the optics are not right. The government has not demonstrated that it takes fiscal prudence seriously. We have the largest cabinet in Nigeria's history. You remember that some 18 months ago, the government announced with great fanfare that I was about to implement the Orosan report and set up a committee and gave the committee 3 months to report. It's been 18 months. No one has heard anything since then. Every day new agencies and commissions are created. I was very pleased to hear the president put a moratorium on the creation of new federal universities. I hope that he goes further, because I've always argued that for every new agency we create, we should close at least 10. That should be the sequence. We've gone from 541 agencies annotated by Orosoi to well over 1,500 now.
1,500.
Yes, and so you can't, in good conscience, also come out and announce that you're increasing the pay of political office holders, and that's apart from the 50 ministers we have innumerable assistants. Special assistants, special advisors, technical assistants. Nobody actually knows the full number. And so it just doesn't create that impression that this is the right thing to do at this time.
Well, when you look at the justification, though, and the fact that, you know, there's been no review for quite a while, the number of other indices, as we know in the economy, have since gone up. We know that fuel price has since increased. We know that inflation has been rising through the roof. We know that, the price of the naira against the dollar, took a huge beating. And yes, it has stabilized somewhat now. But all of these realities have not been reflected in the incomes of our public office holders. And so it would seem that even for those that would wish to stay on the straight and narrow, we haven't quite helped them. So, I mean, can we really say that we're putting off this day until, things are stable in the economy, or that there is a right timing of sorts?
I deliberately didn't talk about things being right in the economy. I talked about the sequence of doing these things. And you're right. I think the salaries have been set since 2008 or so, and has remained the same since then. As DG, I was earning a take-home pay of 895,000 a month. And that hasn't changed. And that had been the amount since 2008. I believe it's still the amount today. But a number of things are wrong. Apart from the salaries, there's great distortion in the system. And so I'm a DG earning 895,000 naira. Another DG could be earning 3 million. Another DG could be earning a lot more. And all of these are based on premises that, to my mind, need further examination now before you start talking about increasing. So as an example, people who run agencies that generate revenue generally earn more. And the basis is, oh, you know, because they are collecting revenue, you need to pay them more so that they won't be corrupt. I think we need to examine that logic, whether it still holds. And then you get some other people that will say, oh, you know, because you run this kind of agency that regulates a particular industry. So, for instance, if you run NCC that regulates the telecom industry, for instance, your salary should be benchmarked against that of the telecom industry. So that you won't be tempted to be corrupt, to, you know, they won't be able to induce you. Is that logic still sound? Because if that were the case, then nobody from any of these agencies would ever have been charged for corruption. But that's not the case. So we need to re-examine some of this logic first. I tried to work on this issue when I was DG, working on this issue of salaries. And one of the challenges was that for people you're already paying 3 million or 5 million, it's difficult to bring them back and say, okay, now you two will get 895,000. But now that there is a clear, compelling need to look at salaries vis-a-vis cost of living, inflation and all that, that's actually the first review that should be done. How can we get some consistency? How can we base our salaries on logic? What is the role of performance in pay? All of those kinds of things we need to discuss first and come to a view before we start talking about raising salaries. So I'm not against, it's true that the salaries of political office holders are unrealistic. That's very true. I think nobody can argue against that. But like I said, that something is right is not often enough in the public service. You need to look at the mood of the nation. You need to make the argument based on logic. You need to have tidied up your own house. And you need to give the citizens the impression that you are being prudent in other areas. So, like I said, cut the number of agencies, implement the Oroso report or whatever version of it they want to implement, hold people to account for performance, you know. And then if you have a more sensible system, it's easy to then argue that, look, I cannot attract the best talents from all over the world and pay them this amount. That would be an easier argument to make.
I was just going to say that because we know that where we are right now as a country is a place where we need the best hands.
Yeah.
But clearly the best hands are not going to come and work in a place where they know they're not going to be fairly remunerated, especially when you look at you know, what they can possibly earn outside of the sector. But then, you know, looking at all the other things, all the other conditions that you have placed, you know, before RAMFAC does this, some people will say, but that is not RAMFAC's job. RAMFAC's job is actually to take a look at these emoluments and see how best it can situate it within the current economic, you know, situation. So do you think that RAMFAC has to maybe liaise with some other agency in such a way that doesn't appear that it's putting the cart before the horse?
I believe so. I mean, first of all, RAMFAC is an agency of government, and so it cannot run off on its own without looking at the other component parts of government. And that's why I think the chairman was talking about consulting, you know, these various stakeholders. So, you know, but yes, RAMFAC's role, for instance, is also to propose and look at the revenue allocation formula across the three arms of government? Has he done so? So you can't just pick and choose the one that favors you as public servants and ignore all your other duties. So yes, I believe that RAMFAC should liaise with the Salaries and Wages Commission. It should liaise with the Ministry of Finance, the Bureau of Public Service Reforms, the Office of the Secretary to Government. There are various interested parties, the Office of the Accountant General, of course, and take a look at these things and make sure that you don't announce something that is completely at odds with the rest of the system.
Well, I know Ayo is dying to get a question in. Ayo, it's over to you now.
Well, thank you, Malkwe. The one question that I want to put particularly on this particular issue that we're talking about, Dr. Abah, is do we really have this balance that we are looking for? Do you think that we have that balance? Have we asked the right questions? Have we looked at the issues that we ought to look at the way we ought to look at them? For instance, one of the arguments that a number of people have put forward about this issue is that maybe some things ought to happen first. Maybe we need to get some traction from the anti-corruption crusade of the government. Maybe we need to see some kind of improvement in the lifestyle, in the living standards of the people. People talk about minimum wage, living wage, which the president promised, and the living standards of the people. Then people have also raised questions about maybe the state governments themselves should show some kind of showing, if I can put it that way, so that people see that, okay, government is making some effort, then we can now sympathize. As you said, there is no right timing, but perhaps there can be some right dynamics. What do you think?
I agree largely with that because a number of state governments are not even paying the minimum wage at the moment. And so there's a need to show responsibility. There's a need to show prudence, so that there's a need to get people on side. We have but there's technical work to do before the political announcement. That's the point I keep making. So we've raised minimum wage to 70,000 naira, rightly. I support that wholeheartedly. I wish it could be more. And because of that, we have then pushed up the salaries of everybody else above the minimum wage. And so you have, in some instances, directors in the civil service, some directors in the civil service, earning roughly the same as what permanent secretaries are getting. Now, permanent secretaries, too, have not had their salaries reviewed either, because they are seen as political appointees. But, they too have certain benefits which other people don't have. So as an example, permanent secretaries don't pay the contributory pension scheme. Government gives them their final salary as their pensions for life. And then you think, okay, so if according to the Attorney General, permanent secretaries are political appointees in that sense, well, why don't I get a salary for life when I leave as DG? I don't get any pension whatsoever. So a lot of these distortions are the technical things I think need to happen before people rush to political announcements.
There's a lot of issues to raise with that one, because you also talked about the fact that corporations of government get to pay themselves better than public service, but so many other issues about that. But something related, maybe in a way, since it has to do with the president and the vice president. The president has been taking some trips all across the world. Right now, we understand he's landed in Brazil, and there was this trip taken to Japan recently, and Tokyo, and part of those trips produced something that I find a little interesting, and I'm not sure I've heard it before. There's a place in Japan now called Kisarazu that has been designated as the hometown of Nigerians in Japan. it has some cultural, diplomatic, and economic benefits for both countries, but more for China, for Japan, it's more of a diplomatic conversation and cultural deepening and all of that. Do you see any risks to it? Because one of the thoughts that a number of people will say, hey, the population of the country, of Japan, is probably growing older, and they're only looking for the brightest and best in Nigeria to come live in Japan. And they're going to be very, very comfortable. The town we're talking about is quite developed. So do you see it as a good way to go, or is this something we should design very, very cautiously or embrace very cautiously?
There are Nigerian communities all over the world. I mean, if you go to the southeast of London, you know, there's very little difference from being in Lagos. If you go to Houston in the US, there's a huge Nigerian community. Same thing in Canada. So yeah, I don't know the details about the Japan one that you talked about, but it's not unusual to have large Nigerian communities in virtually every country of the world. What tends to happen is that a lot of these Nigerians that are there actually keep a very close eye on what is happening in Nigeria. They remit their monies back home. They try and build properties here. They try and invest in businesses here. And so, yeah, I'm not nervous about it. In terms of the brain drain, which is it's a real issue. The world is become a global village now. You can basically contribute to anything you want to do from anywhere. And I think the COVID lockdown taught us that. Some of us were at home for 2 years without needing to step out of our personal studies at home. So I don't get nervous about things like that. I think instead there are policy things that could be done to ensure that we are gaining the most benefit from people in the diaspora. We're enabling them to remit money easily. We're enabling them to invest easily. We're enabling them to, you know, come back home and serve, not for the money. You know, Malkwe was talking about how low the pay is and you know, whether you could actually attract someone from, you could attract the best brains from across the world to do that. The truth is that, you know, most of us call public service in Nigeria NYSC Phase 2. Unless you're corrupt, you don't come into the public service to make money. But at the same time, she's absolutely right that you need to actually be able to at least cover your bills. You need to be able to pay for electricity and buy petrol and things like that. So it's always there's always a tension between the two. But yeah, it's the reason why I left after one term. I simply could no longer afford to live on the salary beyond the 4 years. And those that have been able to do it without being corrupt, they have my full respect.
Well, I guess we probably have to explore that one way or the other. But, you know, back to the president's trips, one of the issues that a number of people have also raised is that whether or not the trips are as productive as they're expected to be. Do you think we're getting the kind of foreign direct investments we should be getting by now? You know, how many years into the president's presidency and the number of trips that he has taken to different parts of the world? Do you think we're getting enough, or you think maybe things are just sluggish for good reason?
I'm not actually competent to comment on that, Ayo, simply because I simply have not followed that issue. I know that our foreign reserves have gone up, which is a very good thing. I know that with the harmonization of the exchange rates, people are able to at least look predictably about what their investment could yield over a period of time in Nigeria. The exchange rate has been stable now for about 2 years or so. Could more investment come in? Absolutely. I'm sure that it could. Are we doing everything that we can? I don't know. I simply have not follow the issue. Sorry.
Dr. Abah, just one last one, since you talk about investment. One of the social buffers that the country has had for a number of years is what is called the National Social Investment Program. Mr. Femi Falana recently put out a statement saying that it seems that the NSIP is not well funded enough. The word he used that I saw was the word paltry. 23 or 32.7 billion naira that he said was a paltry investment. What is your take on that? Of course, that program also has come under some kind of fire previously, but then the question has always been around how it is being executed.
I think you're absolutely right that the focus should be on the how. Because quite often we are very quick to rush to announce initiatives in Nigeria without doing the hard work of sorting out the how. And so the social investment program had all sorts of issues. There were issues about being able to track the beneficiaries. There were issues about the methodology for selecting who benefits from it and who doesn't. So all of those things, there was a need to sort them all out. But in general, it is absolutely right to have a social investment program. Every sensible country has a social investment program to serve as a social safety net for the most vulnerable. The need to focus on how it's used is the need to make sure that it's simply not a political vehicle where it is only those that support a particular political party or those that are, favorable to particular governors that benefit from this social investment scheme. So social protection scheme. So it remains important to continue to focus on how it is done to ensure that it's done transparently and everyone has confidence in the system. And then, of course, that you prioritize the least vulnerable at the same time as you're arguing for an increase in the pay of political office holders.
Dr. Abah, to root it back.
Okay.
I think Ayo has one more.
Well, my apologies, Marco. Just a quick one. You spoke about corruption the other time, Dr. Abah, and you doffed your heart for the people who have been able to operate in public service without corruption. Now, it begs the question of how strong or otherwise our corruption battle is over the years in the country. You operated in the civil service. Maybe you can give us an insight into how it is possible, the vulnerabilities of the system for corruption, and whether or not we have enough, strong enough infrastructure, soft infrastructure or hard infrastructure, whatever, to really deal with the issues of corruption in the public service. If you can speak from your experience, it'll be nice.
Okay, I think that as you rightly said, there are certain vulnerabilities. I also think that we do have robust infrastructure that can actually tackle corruption. So we have the EFCC, for instance, dealing mostly with grand corruption and high-level corruption, which has been doing reasonably well over the years, but you've had shifts in focus. So EFCC, the initial focus was on tackling fraudsters and what are known as Yahoo boys, and then it moved to tackling corruption by politically exposed persons, and that was, I think, when Nigerians really got on board. I think what made EFCC was seeing the Inspector General of Police, Tafa Balogun, in handcuffs. That's when people started to believe that actually their slogan of, nobody is above the law, they actually mean. And then, after Nuhu Ribadu's regime, Farida Waziri came in and started to focus on corruption in the financial sector. So you remember that a number of banks, MDs, and heads of financial organizations were arrested and prosecuted. And at that time, many people felt that the eyes had been taken off the politicians. And then, you know, so you've had this back and forth. And I think a lot of the efforts today, again, seems to have gone back to focusing on internet fraudsters and Yahoo boys and girls. And perhaps there hasn't been enough focus on politically exposed persons. So it's gone back and forth. If you look at ICPC, ICPC does quite a lot of soft anti-corruption work that many people are not aware of. So they do these system studies that look at the vulnerabilities in the system and try to tighten them. And they've actually prosecuted quite a few people for misbehavior on those. It tackles things like harassment of students, sexual harassment of students by lecturers. It looks at corruption in the local governments. Then you have the Bureau of Public Procurement that is trying to put in place proper processes for procuring government goods. Then you have the Code of Conduct Bureau, which to my mind is actually grossly underused. And I say grossly underused because with organizations like EFCC and ICPC, they have the burden to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you've committed a corrupt act. With the Code of Conduct, the code actually presumes that you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And I think we could actually use that a lot more. Use that to tackle unexplained wealth. And so when somebody is earning a particular amount and is, you know, living in a mansion and driving a particular kind of car, the law actually presumes that they acquired that asset corruptly. That is, if you didn't have it before you came to government. So the law assumes that you acquired it correctly, and it is your responsibility to prove that you did it. And I think this is something that we can actually use a lot more. It will be faster. You don't have to drag things through the court for 10 years, as has been the case with some of our governors. Is it enough? It's never enough. Corruption is endemic in Nigeria. But I think the efforts can actually give people a sense that corruption is being seriously tackled. And if you look at the times that Nigeria has made improvements on the corruption perception index, it has been when the politically exposed persons have been tackled, because the perception of the public is that everybody in political office is a thief. That's the perception that the public has. And so if you can show that actually you're not protecting this person because they are close to the president or because they have the status or the other status, then yeah, Nigerians will start to get a feel that perhaps something is now happening.
It's interesting you just mentioned how the CCB can also be useful in you know, helping with the problem of unexplained wealth or sudden unexplained wealth, because the EFCC for a while now has been trying to push a bill through the National Assembly on this unexplained wealth bill, it is called.
Yeah.
But it does appear now from what you're saying that will be a duplication, given that the CCB already has a role like that.
No, it won't be a duplication. I gave it as an example of what the CCB could use.
Indeed.
And so the CCB's role is enshrined in the Constitution. And the Code of Conduct for Public Officers is also in the Constitution. So in that regard, I was talking about the burden of proof, that the proof is on you. The unexplained wealth bill is absolutely crucial, and it will make the work of all of the anti-corruption agencies a lot easier, because it may also have the same burden of proof that the CCB is already empowered to have, which is, you know, if you have this wealth, it's your responsibility to explain it, and you're presumed to have acquired it corruptly until you do.
Oh, Dr. Joe Abah, I wish we had enough time for a last word. If you could just say something to the RAMFAC as they are considering, because it's a process. It's a process. We do not know how it's going to pan out. Eventually, it does appear that they're going to be having a lot of stakeholders in their conversation. But if you could get in a word, what would you be saying to RAMFAC as a commission?
I will say what I said at the very beginning, that quite often in the public service, being right is not enough. You need to explain, you need to consult, you need to look at sequence, you need to look at timing, and you need to look at the mood of the nation.
And right now, the mood is not right.
From what I hear and see, no, it's not.
Well, we have to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts very generously with us this morning. Dr. Joe Abah is a lawyer and also the former Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms and also the Country Director of DAI. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Mope.
Well, we're going off to Benue State now. It's not too far from Abuja. We're both in the same central position. But yes, Benue State recently got a new speaker after the former speaker resigned. And 3 members were reinstated. They had been suspended. They were reinstated. And one of the members who was reinstated was then elected as the speaker. Well, some people have said, look, the sequencing of things is a little surprising given that in public office holdership in Nigeria, very rarely do people resign. So there have been questions as to what exactly happened behind the scenes for us to see the sequence of events that we have seen in Benue State. Well, joining us right now to discuss it is Honorable Sate Tise, who is a majority leader of the Benue State House of Assembly. He joins us via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Honorable. Just a little curious as to what exactly has led to the sequence of events. Just before our correspondent, sent in that report, he did report that there was a meeting held with the governor of the state before that particular meeting of the assembly took place. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you, Marco. Good morning. That is true. The state government is made out of 3 arms, and the legislature is the most democratic one. We work in collaboration with the executive and the judiciary. So when such changes are necessary, all the stakeholders need to come together to look at the way that there will be peace and more progressive development in the state to avoid unnecessary rancor and some crisis.
So what was wrong with the status quo that you felt or that members of the assembly felt was bringing rancor to the state?
I know you remember at the initial when we got into office and were inaugurated. We have been managing the house very well, but there has been, you remember there has been some crisis, one time or the other. We're looking at the best way, and the speaker that just resigned felt that he can make that sacrifice to balance the workings in the house and make the state move forward. If it means removing himself out of the system to allow some conditions to be stable. Well, that's just what he did.
We had seen a situation, I mean, when we were watching the inauguration of state houses of assembly, I do know that Benue State was quite interesting because it was one of the few states where we saw the governor actually sit in with members of the State House of Assembly and watch how plenary, eventually saw the election of, will I say, his preferred candidate. He was suspended, wasn't he?
I don't think that was true. The governor came in. He came from the church. He has never been in any political scene. So when he inaugurated the house, he actually sought to see, let him at least see the process the way it's done. It wasn't in any way that he had a preferred candidate. You remember that even when he was there, he had to leave at some point to allow us to do our job. But at least he had a glimpse of what is done during inauguration. That was his first experience, so he wanted to see it.
And I'm sure everybody has a first time. And you haven't said anything that that I have said was false. I'm just saying that it's not normal, it's not usual. Let me use the word usual.
It is actually
It's not usual that we
a
see
choice.
the principal, or will I say the head of the executive arm of government come and witness what has happened or what is happening within the legislative arm of government, which is supposed to be a separate and independent arm of government by itself in a state and also even at the federal level. I mean, imagine just how it would be if we saw the president coming into the National Assembly and saying, no, I haven't witnessed this before, I'd like to see it. Some people will say that borders on interference.
I told you already that it's a choice. It is not prohibited for an executive to sit there. It's a choice. Some people send their advisors. The advisors, in those occasions, are admitted officially to watch the proceeding. He made the choice, not because he had particular interest that he wanted to, remote the members to do.
Okay.
I told you that when he witnessed it, at some point he had to leave.
So shall we find it strange then that these members who were reinstated, where one of them was immediately elected, if I may use the word, as the speaker, as a new speaker of the House of Assembly?
You remember that when they were suspended on Friday, I had a discussion with the press, and I told them we needed a stability at the moment on that Friday to conduct our proceedings very well. Certainly, this is a political institution, and the legislature is the most democratic. Democracy continues even after the general election. In the House, we still continue, and negotiations happen every day. So that very day, we are doing a very serious business of screening our nominees for commissioners from the governor of the state, and we couldn't afford to, have rancor. So we had to stabilize the House by sending some of them away so we can continue the business. That business was done, and then a lot of stakeholder engagement came in, and that is the point that the Speaker saw that he needed to give way so the problems will be solved, and then make a sacrifice for the state so we can continue our business and have stability in the House to aid the executive in conducting their business very well.
Well, Mr. Honorable Tisse, it's no news that the governor of the state and the secretary to the government of the federation, who everyone says is his godfather, his political godfather, had a falling out. And, there have been talks around their reconciliation, there have been talks around their working together, etc. And we've seen moves in that regard. It's unclear whether all is now well and all has been smoothened out. But a number of watchers, political watchers in Benue State, believe that this might not be unrelated with smoothing out the rough patches between the governor and his erstwhile godfather. So I do not know if you want to comment on that, if this has anything whatsoever to do with it.
I want you to know, and the public to know, that the speaker that just resigned, Right Honorable High Senator Dajo, was in very good terms with the governor. He was the governor also in those teams during the elections. And so I don't think this is connected to whatever you are talking about. But he saw that he needed to do that sacrifice to stabilize government. It's an in-house thing. It doesn't have anything to connect with what is happening outside. The SGF is in the federal, and whatever he has or he may have with the governor is political. It doesn't actually affect the government of the state.
Well, I know my colleague Ayo has a question for you.
To speak a little further on what you just spoken about now, Honorable, because it is no secret that the former speaker had the backing of the governor. And there are allegations now that even though, as you say, it's an independent activity being carried out, but then there are allegations of the rift that was existent before the speaker, Honorable Dajo, became speaker, that was still there. First ballot in 2023, the House was split in half. And even subsequently, it would seem like that much didn't change because the House had always been like kind of on this side and on that side at the same time. So can you speak to us about whether or not this has one thing or the other to do with, one, the governor and his speaker of the, beg your pardon, the secretary to the government of the federation on one hand, and the APC in Benue State on the other?
I told you that all of us in the House belong to a political party. It is only that the APC has majority. It is also not news. It's known to you that the former speaker had the backing of the governor before he won the seat. I told you that we have had some issues in the House back and forth for a long time. And as a good leader, somebody who wants the state to move forward, he feels that maybe if he gives way now, there may be some stability.
But is it true, Honorable, just 1 second, Honorable, is it true that there was a point that the House wanted to impeach the Speaker, but he opted to resign instead?
No. Until he resigned, he had the full backing of members not less than more than 2/3 of the House. There couldn't have been impeachment. I told you that he's a problem-free person. He means well for the state, and he felt that he doesn't want a shaky House under his leadership. So he would just give way for somebody else to come in, and then maybe we'll experience a more peaceful thing. He has done it for 2 years. He feels that maybe another person could try. He's really somebody that doesn't want crisis. If you notice, he doesn't even want public appearance to show up that he's speaker. These are the reasons he gave for more peace, for his peace, personal peace, and for the peace of the House. Let another person experiment that leadership.
Okay, let me ask you, Honorable Tise, because the new speaker is Right Honorable Alfred Mbege, who was a former whip in the House of Assembly. What are you hoping will happen now with the leadership, under the leadership of the Right Honorable Speaker, Alfred Mbege?
The speakership is a seat. The leadership of the House, we have up to 10 people holding positions. So it's a cooperative team. And we hope to give him full cooperation to make sure that he succeeds. I told you that the former speaker just wanted peace. I wanted another person to try. We are trying all the time, very, very serious, to make sure that the volatile nature of the House does not escalate. So the speaker gave way. We are supporting Honorable Beja. He is also a very cool-headed person. We believe that with God and with our support, he will actually succeed.
Well, we have to thank you for speaking with us this morning. We certainly will be keeping tabs. You are the one who say the volatile nature of the House does not escalate. We'll also be keeping tabs.
That is known to public. And it's known to public, and every parliament is like that. You have to balance interests, and because people come differently with their different agenda, and it's democratic. So there is no long process of assuming and then relinquishing roles of leadership. But we believe that we will cooperate, even the necessary cooperation, the same we give to the former Right Honorable Speaker, Odnadajo.
Honorable Sate Tise, who is the Majority Leader, Benue State House of Assembly, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's where we wrap up the program this beautiful Monday morning. Thank you so much for being a part of our program and for watching. I'm Maokbe Ogunyusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Business Morning is on the hour.